Good morning, everyone. My name is David A. Duke, and I like to use my middle initial just to make sure there's no confusion with the other David Duke. So I get that in there whenever I can. He and I have a very different view of the world. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer for Beacon Mobility, and I'm going to tell you what that means and what that is in just a second. But as I've looked on the last few days, it's really been a chance to enjoy and reflect and watch and frankly just have a great time. But I was thinking about Brian Ferguson on Monday, and then I was thinking about Courtney yesterday talking about change. And I remember when I had a seminal change moment for David in terms of how he looked at some things. And I have 4 children. And I screwed up the first 3 pretty bad, so I wanted to make a commitment that I was going to get the 4th one right. And I went for my annual physical. This is probably 17 years or so ago. And I come out and the doctor says to me, he goes, well, we've got some things we've got to work on. And he goes, you know, you've got a constellation of risk factors. And I said, what does that mean? He said, well, you don't have high blood pressure yet, but you're close. You don't have high cholesterol yet, but you're close. You don't have high blood sugar yet, but you're close. And you're overweight, you're fat. I said, you know, doc, man, I said, I like to think I'm a bit of an athlete. You know, I'm always pretty active, that sort of thing. He looks at me and goes, you're no athlete. He goes, you're obese, man. You've got to take care of some things here. So I went home that night and I had a chance to reflect. So my wife's pregnant. My daughter's now going to be 17 here in a couple months. And I said, you know, the people that are the most important people to me in the world are my family, my friends, those that I love. And, you know, and so if I'm going to do the right thing by them, I can't take care of them if I don't take care of myself. So I was a robust 231 pounds at the time, and I'm about 176 pounds today. So over the course of the last 15, 16 years, it's been a journey, it's been a lot of work, but it's really made an impact on how I view the world and how I think I can care better for others because I'm putting them through the lens of what I went through. And I also know I'm a better dad, parent, father, and friend as a result of focusing on myself. So when I reflect on Brian's message, I don't think you can take care of others unless you take care of yourself. So anyway, I wanted to share kind of my journey along the last few years and what that's meant and where it's taken me. So what does the commercial team do? What's the commercial officer do? Well, the commercial group is really charged with how do we grow the business? So setting strategy for growing the business, taking care of our customers, organic growth, whether it's bidding, whether it's RFPs, buying companies, M&A. I think everybody knows that we are pretty aggressive in buying companies. So I wanted to talk to you about, as we look at companies and how we evaluate culture. It's a key part of what and how we assess a business when we look at it. And there are some formal things out there to do, but it's not what we're doing yet. We're still kind of in the early stages of growing and finding out who we are. But it's a key part of the assessment, and when it all starts with that first conversation. First conversation we have. Last night, I was having a beer, and Adam Weller from Transit Team asked me, at what point did you know you wanted to buy Transit Team or do a deal? And I thought about it, and I remember I came out of a CrossFit gym. I'm sitting in my truck. I'm overheated. I'm trying to crank the air conditioning as much as possible, and I jump on a conference call for the first time to meet Mike and Stacy. And it was absolutely delightful. And so I think one of the first things that has to happen, there needs to be a connection. Clearly, when you look at a business, the numbers have to work. I think that goes without saying. When you go through the diligence process, you've got to make sure that there aren't any skeletons in the closet. It's something you can work, and how do you move forward? But importantly, you've got to make sure that the people are right. And that really starts with those conversations in the very beginning. And so a couple points around that. You know, we are a house of brands. And we're a house of brands for a reason, because of the real strength that each of those brands have in the communities they serve. I did a little research last night as I was kind of putting down some notes. And Walter and Edith Transport, has a contract that's 62 years old, according to what we've got in the system. Transit Team is 36, SCR is 36, NRT 39. Kind of look across how many years we've served those customers. we've done a great job, and it means we're really, really part of the community. You can only do that if you're a team. So when we assess culture, one of the things we look at are the individuals and how long those relationships have been in place. And it really does become one of the first conversations, some of that diligence. I want to tell you that the larger the deal, the more important it is that it works out. So I was on the periphery of the Laidlaw first student deal, first group deal, when that happened back in 2007, 2008. In fact, I had left my previous employer and gone to work for First for just about 2 years. It was all I could handle. And I was their senior vice president of sales, and I saw a lot of the carnage that took place. And by carnage, I meant it was two cultures that just couldn't be more different. And some of you, I'm sure, remember that. They just couldn't be more different. Laidlaw was really employee-focused, really customer-focused. First was very much numbers-driven, and it did not go well. So if you look at that business, where it was when they combined in 2007 and 8 to where they were right before they sold recently, they lost a third of the business over about a 10-year period of time. So that speaks a lot to the impact culture can have if you don't get it right. Every conversation, as I said, is an assessment into an insight into values. We really like to look at the management team behind the ownership. And really, it's how the ownership, the seller, and how they talk about and how they deal with that management team and those really long-term relationships. And there's a lot of conversations that take place about how their employees get taken care of. What happens to the team behind them? What happens to their right-hand person? What happens to the person in the shop? What happens to the driver? What does that mean for them? There's a lot of conversation about that. And when there's not a conversation about that, that's a flag. We had a deal recently, and we look at the way leaders behave as we have these conversations. And there was a deal with an operator that we killed. And the first flag was when he started talking about the bad relationship he had with the union and his employees and what that meant. Okay, I can understand sometimes there's a little headbutting that goes on. And then we started digging deeper. And then we realized there was no management team and that they were all pretty much it's them or us mentality. It was not a team approach. And then, of course, we did some more research to find that, at various points in time, they've been charged with certain crimes. So you start adding the behavior up and you think, this isn't a deal that's going to work for us. Wrapping up with just a couple other points. Responsiveness during diligence, making sure that we've got transparency, that we're getting the information we need. That speaks a lot to trust. And then, I think last but not least, it's the nice and reasonable person approach. We have a rule that we like nice people and we don't want to work with assholes. It's just that simple. And frankly, I think we've done a pretty good job where it gets to a point we've decided we're not going to do that. So of the 9 deals that we really evaluated last year, we closed 6 of them. One of them, diligence, didn't work out so well. 2 of them, we said, this does not fit. This does not fit. The culture would be a complete clash. And one of them was, frankly, as we were trying to get things across the line. You're dealing with a seller that's going to be running the business, and it's assessing how are they going to fit in with the team that we've got here with us today. And everything was a no. Everything was a struggle. At some point, you just say, if this is how it is now, and I get it. You spent time building a business, and so you need to protect it, and you get one chance at this, and I understand all that. But just that no asshole rule came into play, and we said no, Moss, it wasn't going to work. I'll leave you with 3 thoughts. One, that values create culture, and culture creates success. 2 is that everybody in this room has a responsibility to hold each other accountable to our values. We have a great culture. We've seen it over the last 48 hours. It's been absolutely phenomenal. It's something we have to protect. And it's important that everybody in this room think about that and take the time to protect it and really look at decisions through the lens of our values and maintain the culture that we've got. And then the last thing I want to say, well, it won't be the last thing I want to say, but it's going to be close to it, is to thank you for your leadership. It is truly impressive. We are the best in the business. And I talk to a lot of companies, and I see that very clearly. When I think about what commercial is targeted with doing, which is how do we grow the business, we can't grow the business unless we keep the business we have. And it's really important that as we deliver the right level of service to our customers, we take care of our employees, and we're doing the right thing. So thank you for your leadership. And with that, well, okay, applause, there we go. And with that, I'm going to call up 3 guys that are going to talk about how they created culture in their business over decades, really. So I want to call up Joe Scott and Mike Richter, who's out there somewhere. And last but not least, Bart Markson, who is dancing around. So come on up, guys.